Whether it's Yamato's confusing gender, her fan servicey giant milkers, or her loud and obnoxious personality, everything about this One Piece character is controversial to say the least, divisive and toxic as she dominated the center of attention for years. And whether you love or hate her for these very reasons, all of these aspects contribute to the stan and hater behavior. So today we're diving into the full story of Yamato's meteoric rise and fall in popularity and reputation. I even went back and read through the entire Onigashima raid just to find out exactly how many times Yamato referred to herself as Oden in Wano, which I will reveal later in the video. This is the son of Kaido, the Oni princess, the wannabe Oden. This is the truth behind the controversial rise and fall of Yamato. First off, let me know in the comments, do you love Yamato? Do you dislike her? And why? This drastic dramatic rise and fall is something that I've only witnessed a handful of times in fiction. A complete 180 in reputation and popularity. Yamato is the perfect example of a fictional character being so controversial but on both sides, with fans of her character who praise her every move, and those on the complete opposite spectrum who continuously prey on her downfall and speak ill of her every chance they get. And while the loud majority of Yamato fans were at one point just as obnoxious as she is, I would say that these rampant stans might have been one of the biggest contributors to her actual passionate haters being birthed. One Piece has spanned 25 years, and after witnessing hundreds and hundreds of new characters created by Oda, Yamato is, from what I've witnessed, the most divisive character to be introduced in the story. Controversy is defined by disagreement between passionate opposing views, and I would argue that Yamato's mere existence drives endless toxic debate. Here's a comment from an old community post that I made about controversial characters in the past, and SJ Naka 101 said it best when he comments, "I really can't think of a character that comes even close to Yamato in terms of controversy. Every conversation around his character is liable to become toxic as hell in online spaces." Yamato was first introduced in the Wano Super Saga during the peak of Wano, the Onigashima raid, and seemingly out of nowhere she became the star of the show. There is actually one thing that most people agree with when it comes to Yamato's character, and that is she is indeed a perfectly designed character. But even when we all agree, this is also a discussion for both sides. We'll get more into the overall details of her design later in the video, but the reason for this contention really comes down to one thing. Yamato has massive boobs. They're impossible to miss, especially in the anime where the jiggle physics have them bouncing around like overblown water balloons. On one side we have plenty of Yamato stans simping as they fall instantly in love at first sight. Once they saw her curves, she could do no wrong. But on the other side, people use Yamato's very blatant fan servicey appeal to attack her character as they claim she's a hollow, substance lacking character. That's a common criticism that I've seen. She's shallow. And while I disagree personally, it doesn't change the fact that it's an ever-growing sentiment within the One Piece community. We're dealing with a very aggressive and powerful character who is willing to fight anyone, and I mean literally anyone, from Luffy to Ulti to Kaido. And speaking of Kaido, this is where we get our next biggest controversy. You might be wondering, that's a female, right? So then why is she known as the son of Kaido? The first big shocking reveal for Yamato's character was that Kaido's son was actually a daughter? And this is one of the most taboo subjects in One Piece, because who would have guessed that this would spawn 2 years of endless, heated gender debates leading to the most toxic aspect to her character. In an age of pronouns and heated political and cultural discord, Yamato's gender was always a heated topic in YouTube comments, Discord servers, and worst of all, Twitter. With the introduction of these gender debates, Twitter contributed with some of the most toxic and most obnoxious discussions every week, always finding a way to bring it back to Yamato being transgender or a man or a woman or whatever. It's one thing to talk about who's stronger, Zoro or Sanji, Shanks or Mihawk, but to bring in an already established politically charged debate into One Piece only adds fuel to that fire. Imagine being a Yamato simp and then being ridiculed for being gay because half the fan base thinks he's a man. Or how about being someone who is on the opposite side, an LGBT ally, being harassed because you're claiming Yamato could be a transgender man. Yamato has curves that are impossible to ignore, but the tendencies and personality of a masculine brute. And this all became a lot less clear and a lot more confusing the more it went on, because Yamato was inspired by the powerful samurai forces of her past, and we still have to talk about what I call Yamato's Odenisms. That's right, this psycho claims to be Oden, one of the greatest and most beloved characters in One Piece, and personally I actually find his Oden outbursts hilarious, but some people, they despise it and they are vocal about how annoying, obnoxious, and tired it became over the course of the Wano arc. Now, I can actually agree it's obnoxious, but I'm also the same guy that says Zenitsu is the best character in Demon Slayer, so maybe that just says something about me and what I like more than anything. I like to think that this Oden complex is a similar quirky gag to Zoro getting lost, Buggy's nose insecurities, or Sanji twirling like a ballerina screaming Nami Swan as he nosebleed blast over the screen. To me, Yamato's quirky behavior is a lot more funny than someone like Brook and his pervy panty peeking gags and his bone jokes. The truth is, this is classic One Piece, classic Oda, as most One Piece characters have these funny or not so funny little quirks. You got Kaido being a drunk, Big Mom being a fat who likes to sing about food, Nami's love for money and treasure, Garp's narcolepsy, Nico Robin's gruesome and morbidly distasteful comments, Frankie's super, and the list just goes on and on and on. You get the point. These gags are sometimes funny, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just straight up annoying, and sometimes completely over the top and ridiculous. But they are a One Piece staple. As much as I love One Piece and its amazing cast, each and every character quirk is very hit or miss. So I can completely understand why some may not like Yamato's while others do. And to be fair, in defense of those who don't like it, this level of disgust isn't just for the quirk on its own. It's not just for the Oden complex. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that Yamato just overdoes it. Sure, Zoro, he does get lost a lot, but I went back and counted exactly how many times Yamato claimed to be Oden or had an Oden type moment or reference, and after gathering the data, the results were horrifying. These results, they will disgust you. Mind you, Yamato was featured in one of the most character-packed sections of One Piece with so much going on all at once, jam-packed like an Avengers movie. And in the entire time from her introduction to the last times that we see Yamato, she blurts out one of these Odenisms a total of 18 times. Now, could you imagine if Zoro got lost 18 times during a single arc? Or imagine if Brook made 18 panty jokes in one arc. And so I think with this in mind, I can at least understand where people are coming from and the hesitancy to Yamato joining the Straw Hats. Because if you don't like this, now you really don't. While many love this crazy, goofy Yamato saying, "I'm Oden," with all the confidence and delusion in the world. She's so quirky, she's so silly. However, others frowned with a straight face, which over time would become fury, as in their mind, she just disrespected the late Oden's legacy time and time again. And with that simple phrase, "I'm Oden," the One Piece community was turned upside down again, doubling down on the gender controversy because if she's Oden, well, she must be a man, right? Doubling down on the shallow side because she's nothing but Oda's humor mixed into two breasts and devil horns. She's not even her own character, she's just a wannabe Oden. Yamato had become even more confusing, more toxic, and more controversial with every line of dialogue she spoke. Yamato had become an overnight sensation of polarization, but the true event that would spark the flames of controversy were still only a few chapters away. The evidence needed to rile up the community even more than ever before. The first ever One Piece global popularity poll had arrived, and so had Yamato.
Whoa, hey.
It was revealed that Yamato ended up placing 11th. One Piece has hundreds of characters spanning multiple decades, and so Yamato placing this high above many other notable fan favorite characters was shocking, infuriating, confusing, and exciting for fans all around the world. Even placing ahead of big fan favorites like Shanks, Katakuri, and even multiple Straw Hats. This solidified to everyone that Yamato was here to stay, and she had a backing of an insanely passionate group of fans. But the true nature of the internet, it's petty. This possibly transgender demon princess beating out my favorite donut eating mochi man, enough is enough. And so it felt like after this moment, the Yamato haters just became louder and the fanboys did as well. Simultaneous chants of Yamato and Mami Yami from all corners of the world, and it will only continue to get louder and louder and louder. This was still only the beginning. Soon enough, Yamato would unleash power feats that would shock the One Piece world. Yamato running the Onigashima battlefield, smacking OT and page 1 around like fodder, a nasty Thunder Bago accountable attack mirroring her father, and once we get to the rooftop, it's over, man. It's pure hype from here. Yamato is going toe to toe in a very heated personal battle with her father. You had people questioning if Yamato was more powerful than Sanji and Zoro. Once we saw her devil fruit and her wolf transformations, it was getting ridiculous. The untapped Konkurosaki potential, locking her into combat with the world's strongest creature, Yamato was built different, and with Sanji, Jinbei, and Zoro fans beginning to shake in their boots, Yamato gained even more opposition as a popular pick for a future Straw Hat Pirate. If she joined the crew, she could shake up the entire dynamic of the crew for the first time ever. The final moment that we'd all been waiting for was here. Was Yamato really going to speak it into existence? Was it finally time for her to join the Straw Hats and become a pirate? The shocking answer? No. Yamato at the last minute, after 50 chapters of hints that she would join the crew, decided in a very abrupt and confusing way that she would stay in Wano. The biggest tease by Oda, leaving fans confused about the insane amount of focus and spotlight and what this all led up to. Were all those nights of toxic fighting about Yamato really worth it? Was her character arc really so underdeveloped and wishy-washy? Is Yamato's character a complete waste of time? What was Yamato's ultimate purpose for the story? It seemed like the entire character arc had led to this final moment, but after one chapter, it all felt like some obnoxious joke. And now it's time for me to tell you the honest reality of where I stand in the Yamato debate as we dive into her biggest decision in the story, the decision to not become a Straw Hat Pirate and leave Wano. So, do I love her? Do I hate her? And I hope you're willing to listen to my perspective and hear me out regarding the most unexpected turn of events for her character. But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Hit that bell like Luffy and Skypiea to be notified for future videos. It takes a ton of time and hard work to get these videos out consistently, so simply liking the video if you've enjoyed anything that I've said goes a long way. And if you're interested in purchasing any manga or anime products, I'll leave my Right Stuff affiliate link in the description. Now let me tell you why I love Yamato. Yamato is one of my favorite new characters to come out of Wano aside from Oden, Kaido, and Goldie Roger if he counts. She's one of, if not the most entertaining character, and every time she's on screen, you can always expect the unexpected, which makes it all the more exciting. Whether it be an incredibly powerful and entertaining fight or a hilarious comedic outburst, it's never a dull moment with Yamato, and I think that's why so many people are drawn to her character. I love Yamato's design as well. How can you not? It's one of the most flawless designs in One Piece. Oni horns tying her Oni princess heritage, iconic samurai inspired outfit, and the demon mask too. Those are all important things for her character since she loves samurai culture and wears her inspirations on her sleeve. And then you slap on gravity defying a accountable weapon of choice and some white hair that fades into a rich turquoise blue, and it's like, what is there not to like about her design? Really, the only time her design falters a bit is in her hybrid form. And maybe you're into that furry but leave me out of that club. I'm someone who always values a great design for a character, especially in anime and manga, because I've always loved Japanese anime art style since I was a kid. A great design could be the difference between me liking and loving a character. For example, Mihawk. He might only be half as cool and half as great if his design was lacking. And same goes for characters like Shanks, Katakuri, Boa, Hancock, you get the point. The fight with Kaido stalling on the roof was also a highlight. But one of my biggest criticisms that I stand by to this day is that I was genuinely surprised and disappointed that Yamato did not get a true 1v1 to show off more of her abilities in this war. Now going back to the fight with Kaido, I love the dialogue and the writing during this fight. They have the most interesting dynamic between a father and a child that we've ever seen in One Piece. I love Yamato's reaction to not being able to call his bluff because of how insane the King of the Beast truly is. His fear is showcased as Kaido is fully willing to blow off her head as we see the shackles explode with Luffy tearing them off Yamato. I just love the nuance of Kaido's responses to Yamato's more straightforward and direct questioning. We get these two completely insane individuals, and she definitely inherited some of her insanity from Kaido and the psychological strength that you need to deal with someone like this growing up. Kaido being a conquering beast, so war ready with a survival of the fittest mentality, and then we have Yamato, a lot more empathy and a lot of love for the people of Wano. Kaido claims that Onis can never be friends with humans. Yamato idolizes the human samurai of Wano, and these are the people that Kaido ruthlessly slaughtered. Kaido sees them as weak, as most of them were easily defeated, but to Yamato, they are her strength. Her idol is the one man who can stand up to her father. Kozuki Oden. And I think in this moment, witnessing Oden's greatness, she decided to fully embody what he stood for, since she probably always wanted to be able to stand up against her father. And when you think about it from this perspective, Yamato's writing is actually top tier because of her inspirations from Oden. After fighting Oden's logbook, it's important to remember just how much Oden hyped up his own legacy. The harem wars, the manly goodbye where no one shed a tear, finding the uncharted land of Laugh-Tale, and traveling around the world with the greatest pirate to ever live. Why wouldn't Yamato want to be like Oden? Who wouldn't want to replicate a lifestyle and legacy so great? And with their own personal circumstances, Oden's greatness meant that much more and was that much more powerful. Imagine witnessing such a glorious death, holding up the retainers that were meant to hold him up. And so if Yamato was going to inherit the will of anyone, Oden was the perfect fit. And so that's why I can always see the Odenisms and Oden inspiration as a psychological trick that she uses. Imagine a time when you didn't know what to do. If you're someone who's unsure or has insecurities or simply lacks quick and reliable decision making, you might ask yourself, what would blank do in this moment? Blank might be your father, your grandfather, your mother, your older brother, a friend you admire, a teacher, a coach, a teammate. Maybe blank for you at one point was a fictional character like Superman or Luffy or Goku. We all have a blank that we insert when we're unsure what to do, especially when we don't have someone we could directly ask for advice. What would the person that you look up to most do here in these tough times? I know I've done this before, and I'm sure most of you have done this as well. So seeing Yamato do it, I actually think it makes her a lot more relatable. Another thing I love about Yamato is seeing her awaken conqueror's haki as she earns Kaido's respect at such a young age was amazing. Seeing a child knock out all these men was really one of the best moments. But there's also a childish and hilarious element to Yamato that I like about her, where she's putting plates on Momonosuke's head to make him look like Oden, and then there's something so raw and so inspiring of her fasting until Luffy wakes up from his week-long sleep after the battle, paying homage to the samurai that she looks up to. Yamato is an outsider to Wano, yet she's taken on the customs of their military forces, their rituals, their customs. When I think of the inherited will theme that is so prevalent in One Piece, this is another great example of it. Seeing the prejudice towards the humans from her father being proved wrong and then the samurai taking her in and feeding her instead of fearing her and mistreating her was a very important scene. From a writing standpoint, these little developments contextualize her actions. There's a rhyme and reason for why she behaves the way she does in every decision that she makes. And with all this context, we can finally look to her final most important decision, the decision to join Luffy's crew and become a Straw Hat. All the signs seem to be heading in this direction too, with Yamato declaring she would join and even telling the other Straw Hats about this decision. It felt like the perfect ending to her character and the story in Wano, until she didn't join. Wait, what kind of tease is this? How does that make any sense for a character to suddenly switch up? Was Yamato really just a huge phony? All talk? This decision not only does not make any logical sense character-wise, it's also executed in a terrible manner, teasing us hard until the very end with one of the worst explanations. She wants to stay in Wano because Oden traveled the country and explored Wano before leaving with Whitebeard to become a pirate? What the f? I was fine with it being a gag, but Oda took it too far here. It doesn't make any sense since the only reason Oden didn't leave prior is because it's a closed nation and he didn't have anywhere to go or any way to leave. He always felt cramped and left soon as the opportunity showed up. He hung on the back of his ship for days to prove just how serious he was dedicated to leaving Wano. And Yamato decided not to leave at the last minute. It's not even like Luffy wouldn't accept her. He even says that she's welcome to join and become a pirate whenever she likes. It was all on her. Early on, I predicted that Yamato wouldn't join because of her devil fruit and her becoming the guardian of Wano. After the finale of the raid and her repeatedly saying that she wants to join, Oda just kept throwing signs in her face that she would. This was confusing and tiring. It just left a sour taste of disappointment in Yamato's conviction. I left this chapter feeling like Yamato's character, who had so much potential, just became nothing. But this was a ridiculous overreaction because a few chapters later we get a hard U-turn that flipped all this back with much needed clarification. We find out the real reason for Yamato not joining. It turns out patience in a week-to-week manga is more than necessary. Overreactions are quite common when it comes to these types of situations. We learn that Yamato actually decides to stay in Wano and not join the Straw Hats because she had finally realized it was her duty to protect the country that they fought for. She's someone who valued the samurai culture so much, and now it was her turn to protect the rebuilding nation with no real defensive authority from Kaido or Oden anymore. Even though the Marine's forces were shaken up and pushed away by Shanks' conqueror's haki, this wouldn't always be the case. There wasn't always going to be a wild Shanks appearing or a Joy Boy to save them. And with how important Wano is, Yamato staying back and doing the opposite of what her father once did was not only in character, but also amazing writing and development contrasting Kaido. So in the end, I actually really did end up liking the explanation for Yamato's actions. Shocking? Sure, but it actually works well with all this added context in mind. So am I disappointed that Yamato didn't join the Straw Hats crew after all the hype? Sure, maybe a little. Yamato would have been a great addition to the Straw Hats with her energy, but the truth is that Yamato is right. Momonosuke isn't strong. He's the shogun who could transform into a dragon, but he still has a ways to go. The fact that Yamato lied to protect Momonosuke's pride and confidence was a very nuanced decision when you think about how loud and straightforward this character has always been previously. A very interesting and new development. If anything, it shows a great deal of development between Yamato and her ties to Wano and specifically Momonosuke. This duo now looks to be like a 1-2 punch, an awkward wannabe father-son dynamic, and I find it really funny and endearing personally, but I'm sure the Yamato detractors would say otherwise. Her character took a lot of growth and maturity to put aside her selfish desires for the betterment of Wano, and the more I've been able to process it, the more I see how it actually makes her a better character. But if I learned anything from this reaction, it's to not overreact and let things play out in this 20-year ongoing weekly story. Maybe Yamato was actually too controversial to become a Straw Hat, and this is all for the best. And while those gender debates and Yamato hate has begun to simmer down, I'm sure the moment she returns to the story, the controversy will pick up right back where we left off.